Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So many questions are raised, but I'm going to start with a written statement. Thank you again for inviting me to the Transportation Committee High-Speed Rail Oversight hearing. Obviously, there's numerous complex questions and issues that deserve discussion at the state legislative level. The problem that I am seeing is how this discussion is being framed, and it's very much us versus them kind of conversation, all or nothing, in or out. And I want to start by saying I'm very disappointed in the recent Fresno Bee editorial regarding high-speed rail. I'm going to quote that editorial saying, "The large bridges and other structures that are to carry the high-speed trains are under construction here, and one fear has been that if the project went unfinished, those structures would stand out as a Stonehenge-like monument to the state futility on the bullet train." I was appointed to the High-Speed Rail Board in 2015 by the Speaker, and no discussion has ever taken place in public or closed session, and I've never heard any board member, past or present, mention the idea of abandoning the Central Valley. Those framing the conversation in this way are acting irresponsibly, in my mind, and doing a disservice to the future of the high-speed rail in the Valley and in California. In fact, according to the law, the High-Speed Rail Authority is required by statute to build, quote, usable segments that will benefit local transit systems if we fail to complete our project. I hope this hearing will help reframe that conversation so real options can be discussed. Let me note, however, there has been repeated mention and concern about completing the basic civil infrastructure, track systems of the 119-mile Central Valley Corridor by the 2022 deadline as required under the ARA agreement. That has been discussed quite a bit. So, moving on. In a legislative hearing in 2018, Senator Galgiani pointed out that one of the reasons we were able to get cap-and-trade funding is because of agreements we made to build connected systems that serve local areas as well as across the entire state. Brian Kelly, high-speed rail CEO at this time, it says at the same legislative hearing in 2018, he said, our goal is to provide mobility and maximize connectivity for Californians, whatever it takes so that the public can start receiving benefits from the system earlier rather than later. That's the discussion I'm interested in pursuing. The high-speed rail project is in the process of providing a vastly improved rail corridor in the Central Valley. That means new, dedicated track, no longer sharing tracks designed for freight trains. That means separate, straighter, and faster and more frequent passenger trains. That is not in dispute. The question that is not being addressed is simply this. Is it better to ride a 170-mile-per-hour train from Bakersfield to Merced, but then have to get off and wait for a different train, and I might add, capable of 125 miles an hour, if your destination is San Jose or Sacramento? The analysis that you've seen before you is based on existing condition, not on upgrading an existing train, non-electrified, to 125 miles an hour. That is the analysis that I have not seen and have not been compared. Or is it better to have a one-seat ride throughout the Central Valley from Bakersfield to Merced, then on to San Jose or Sacramento on a 125-mile-per-hour train? That goes to the ridership question. I've asked people that question many times. Unless there is a dramatic difference in time, and I might question that difference between Bakersfield and Merced, if it's 120 mile per hour or 125 mile per hour low-emission high-speed diesel versus a 170 mile an hour train, that's a different comparison. But assuming there is not a dramatic difference in time, the one-seat ride is always the answer, always. Business travelers prefer the scheduling certainty, getting to their appointments on time, because there's a schedule on one train, they don't have to get off and change, and the convenience of a one-seat ride so they can get some work done or take a nap. Families are far more concerned about the safety, comfort, and convenience of moving their children on a one-seat ride. Just herding children around the train station can be pretty complicated, even if it is a good, tight connection. And casual travelers depend on arrival certainty so they can be picked up or be on time for the events they're traveling to, music, entertainment, etc. Short of carefully coordinated interagency scheduling, it's very possible that the time saved on a high-speed train can easily be lost or made worse by transfers, even smooth transfers, never mind the inconvenience. Would a traveler from Fresno, and I'm going to make an estimate or a guesstimate, who saves 20 to 30 minutes on a high-speed train as compared to a high-speed diesel at 120 miles an hour, 125 miles an hour, would they benefit if they had to transfer in order to travel any further? Virtually every rail industry person I have ever spoken with believes that within a reasonably competitive system, a one-seat ride is the most significant way to build ridership, going to Assemblywoman Friedman's point. Can the 125-mile-per-hour one-seat ride program be built at least several years sooner than the 170-mile-per-hour high-speed rail train? The answer is yes. Will the one-seat ride program be done billions of dollars cheaper than the electric train? The 2019 project update report indicates there would be significant savings. Would it be smarter to wait to fund electrification and purchase of high-speed trains until they are actually needed for a true one-seat ride through a tunnel to the Bay Area? I believe we need to have that discussion, and I'm glad we're here having it, actually. The question becomes, which building blocks can the High-Speed Rail Authority focus on to advance the goals of the program? They are congestion relief and increased rail ridership. And by the way, there was significant discussion about the ridership statements made earlier. We didn't get into them here, but incremental versus significant versus incremental. If you have a very high ridership and you have an incremental increase in terms of overall ridership, that could be a lot more significant if you have small ridership and have a significant increase. So I want you to understand the numbers that you're talking about, Assemblyman Friedman, are very, very important, not the terminology. So increasing regional connectivity, which is extremely important. That's why I say there's nobody on the High-Speed Rail Authority who is even prepared to talk about not connecting to, hopefully, the ACE system, the Amtrak system, and somewhere in Bakersfield maybe a system coming from the south eventually. But certainly those two systems are mission critical. Leveraging local matching funds, and I want to add a comment here. This is part of the fundamental charge. We've heard a lot about the mission to build a high-speed train as soon as possible. That is not, I mean, the high-speed system is the way I view that, not a high-speed train anywhere to anywhere, but a high-speed system that works. And it may take a different building block approach. But in our charge, in the actual statutes, selecting corridors or usable segments thereof for construction, the authority shall give priority to those corridors or usable segments that are expected to require the least amount of bond funds as a percentage of total cost of construction. We're told to leverage money. That means local money, federal money, any money, private money, for establishing priorities, initiating construction on corridors or usable segments. So back to the goals. And I'm going to say attracting private sector investment is one of them, but we haven't been very successful, but we're looking at it. But significantly, addressing the governor's executive order that he came out with recently, and to quote, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate the impacts of climate change while building a sustainable, inclusive economy. That means looking at the package holistically. Where is the best value for greenhouse gas emissions, for instance? No doubt the Valley needs help there. But as Assemblyman Friedman also said, there's places in Los Angeles that are as bad, if not worse, than the Central Valley. And if we can increase ridership in those corridors at the same time, we will be doing a better job overall on greenhouse gas emissions, which I think is extremely important. If we are to maximize those goals, we should look at options. We don't have the funds to build a tunnel between the Valley and the Bay Area or Southern California. This is the fundamental question. And I believe we are unlikely to complete any tunnel in less than 15 or 20 years. In my opinion, until we have tunnels in either direction, building catenaries, maintenance facilities, and buying high-speed trains is unnecessary. Considering advances in high-speed technology, which I hope we may hear about today, it may even be premature. Until that time, we should work with our partners, addressing the issues that were brought up here today, ACE, Amtrak, Southern California Metrolink, very critical. They can help answer those questions because they know the communities a lot better than high-speed rail coming in. We should work with them now to build as much as possible on high-speed rail corridors with the money we have. $15 billion invested in the Central Valley, and smaller, much smaller, targeted and locally matched investments in the bookends. In that way, it's possible we could have 3 usable segments that benefit all Californians and deliver benefits to the public earlier rather than later. There is no doubt of one thing. The Central Valley will have a vastly improved rail transit that will operate at least at 125 miles an hour, hopefully in a one-seat ride. If we can adjust our thinking, perhaps we can do it sooner and at less cost. Thank you.
If